I think that all the presentations mentioned a lot of topics that regard the offshore wind farms. And I think that we can focus in the few minutes that we have left in some of the topics that were mentioned. Mrs. Livadaru spoke about accompanying projects, and this is important as regards the wind farms, but also as regards the bill that comes to the consumer. What is going to be the value for the local societies from the development of this kind of projects, and what will be the cost for the consumer to pay? We already mentioned some figures, but I would like all of you to give us a comment on these topics.
Mr. Triantafylos, yes, it's interesting. It's something that I noted in your presentation as well. It's an interesting topic, and it is part of a larger concern. If you want to look at something as a cost or as an opportunity, or what will be required in order to develop this sector, significant investments will be required, and that's a given. However, it's also an opportunity to modernize our infrastructure. It's an opportunity to create value, and that value that stays in the country and the local economies. And it is also, if you will, an investment that if we start making it for a project that is meaningless, then the cost truly skyrockets and can blow up the entire project. But if you introduce it if you introduce a pipeline project, if you have a solid target, if you have a commitment as the state to support in the medium and long term this technology, not in a fireworks manner, then as you understand the needs and the cost of the investment in the long run, and in the face of other investments that are going to be made, takes a different dimension. So this is how I want to look at things. I want to see that if you split up the cost, if you divide the cost along the many benefits that you are going to get, then I would say that it can be considered even negligible. Mr. Fidas. Yes, there are large opportunities because infrastructure is going to be required for our ports, our harbors. It was very interesting to hear what about this energy island that is planned at a distance of 100 kilometers from the shores of Denmark. And of course, always respecting the environment and all the things that you already mentioned. It's something that we can use for the installation of substations, these artificial islands, or perhaps the electrolyzers for hydrogen. Or we can use, maybe not an artificial island, all the small islands that we have in Greece. Also, since we have these great speakers today from that are Greek people that are working from abroad, this is we will have a brain regain, just the opposite of this brain drain. So there's a lot going on into the equation, many factors, many benefits that need to be considered in a holistic view of holistic design of all these things. Mr. Alagialoglu, I would like you to include a few words about this energy island. It's a typical example. Perhaps it cannot be immediately used for the Greek seas, but there are accompanying projects for the mainland and for the islands as well. Yes, in terms of your first question and the logistics chain and the advantages of offshore wind farms, I would say that the development that they offer is at a regional level, decentralized. We're talking about harbors on islands, not on the main cities, in areas where not like the metropolis where you have concentrated value. So it is an area that does promote development. Also, we need to consider that these are large projects, and if we move beyond the development and construction phase, we have the operation and maintenance phase. We are expecting these to stay there installed for 25 to 30 years, and they require a team of experts near those points to be able to service the projects, the farms. So we're talking about a large team of projects surrounding a large team of experts surrounding each project, and job opportunities for 25 to 30 years. Of course, these people will not all come from markets that are already mature with offshore wind farms. So we need to train people for jobs that will be well paid for a period of 30 years. And that is a large part of the added value of these offshore wind farms. Now, the next step, these energy islands, as I said, it's the next step. Perhaps, obviously, it's something very interesting to see if we can use this technology in Greece. We have the advantage of having the islands, so we don't actually need to build artificial islands like they did in Denmark. So it would be very interesting to see if we can exploit these synergies, to use Mr. Triantafyllos' favorite word, to have these energy islands and also offshore wind farms using these small islands that we already have to further promote decarbonization through the use of hydrogen by the industry, or perhaps for transports. Greece also, we have the shipping sector. It would be good to make it green, and that can happen through this transition that will be served by offshore wind farms. So there are many uses, and it would be very interesting to actually examine further this concept of energy islands. I would like to take this a step further to maybe open the next part of the discussion. So I'm happy that you discussed about this comment. And I can say that yes, job opportunities will be created. Yes, we will have this interconnection and the cable interconnection. So we do have these accompanying projects that will support the economy. But there is also a more long-term plan that I want to talk about. We said that wind farms and offshore wind farms are the first step for modernizing the entire economy. Then we are talking about, Mr. Alagialoglu said, there could be accompanying projects that we have not even thought about. We need to let the industry speak, to learn, for example, where hydrogen could be needed, or where PPAs will come into play. And according to this information, we will know what infrastructure will be required, things that we don't know right now. We have all the discussions, the deliberations, we are waiting for the regulatory framework. These are important factors, and we need to discuss further about the long-term planning beyond these offshore wind farms. The infrastructure that is required is tied to the offshore wind farms, but it's more than what we're talking about right now. Yes, you also said in your speech that the megawatt hours go from 220 euro right now, it can drop to 65 euro. So that's another benefit. Yes, and I wanted to start from what we're talking now. There's not a lot more to add. I obviously agree with regard to the added value that offshore wind farms may have for a country, but I also want to put a little asterisk here and use your phrase to let the industry speak. And just to make a little note here that we have the part that has to do with a vision, a strategy, and it's something that the state needs to manage and develop the ports, develop the harbors. And there's the industry that doesn't really have such a romantic vision. It has to be something more concrete. So let's not make the mistake of considering that what we make in Greece here will not be built in Italy or in Spain or somewhere else. So this levelized cost of energy that you talked about, these are results coming from studies. As an industry, we pose our targets and we try to achieve them. As I said before, it's a strategy of our company, it's a vision to achieve this improvement for the cost of energy. But we need projects, we need investments to that end, not only in Greece, in other parts of the world as well, in order to achieve it in the time frame, the desired time frame. I think there are 2 points here to be made. First is, why is this whole thing happening? It has to do with the quality of life, and in order to be friendlier to the environment. And the other point is the cost. Yesterday we talked a lot about the cost, the transition cost from one technology to the other. So we think that this is something that we cannot turn a blind eye to. There is a cost for the transition, but it's a matter of the state, of the government to manage this cost and divide it with a long-term plan, so that the generation that is actually part of this energy transition does not bear the entire cost of it. Another topic that perhaps we can discuss in the few minutes that we have left, in terms of the maturity of this technology. If we want to answer the question, how fast can we see a wind farm, an offshore wind farm in the Greek seas, how would you answer that? Let's start with you. We think that the technology is mature enough. There's no problem. We don't see any reason why the technology that we already have available cannot meet the requirements of an installation in Greece, and that also includes floating wind farms. Of course, we need to optimize the techniques and the approach for all these projects, but the technology is there. What is definitely challenging is the time frame. We feel that the time frames are rather ambitious. Being realistic, it's difficult to achieve them. So if we want to actually meet those time frames, be ambitious and fulfill the requirements, we need to act very fast in terms of the institutional framework and in terms of the way these projects are going to be implemented, along with their accompanying auxiliary projects and all the administrative services that need to be created. Mr. Zagas, on the technical side, we do have the floaters. We have many technologies to use. We do have the wind farms, the wind turbines, and it has been proven that the floaters can support them with minor changes in their designs. So, from the side of from the technical things are all covered. The other thing is the time frame. I will say that because I've been dealing with onshore wind farms for a long time now, we need 7 years to get a license at best for an onshore wind farm. So we have 9 years until 2030, and we want to have 1.5 gigawatt offshore, and that's a very ambitious target in just 9 years' time. From the side of the investor, let me first say that I do agree with Mr. Zakas. The technology is there, but in order to make all these things more attractive, we are waiting for the R&D part of all the companies involved to develop even further so that the cost can be reduced and the investments can be more attractive. So it's always good to continue to improve the technology. And let me add that the key word here in floating wind farms is the industrialization of the floaters. The technology has been tested. The relationship between the wind turbine and the floater is not something that scares us on the technical side, but the key in order to proceed faster and more economically with the floating parts is to industrialize the floaters. How we can converge all the different concepts of floaters together, all the solutions proposed by the demo project, so that we can decide what are the main technologies that should be used for the floaters and which one will be the leader in this industrialization process with accessories, with parts that are already available in our country that have to be built at a larger scale. We need a mass production, and that obviously will also reduce the costs. These parts can be mass produced or can be imported and not imported, they can be transported to the different harbors, to the different locations that they need to be assembled at. And I will agree that if you have a goal, if you have a system, then you can actually meet your target. Of course, the times for the licensing in the past had not been very good, but hopefully this will change in the future. Let me add something, a different dimension regarding the technology. Aside from its ability to meet the targets right now, we also have to consider the developments for the future. Today we talked about wind turbines of 15 megawatts. With the targets that we talked about, we are talking about 100 wind turbines. 100 wind turbines in order to meet the goal of 1.5 gigawatts. If we go to 2 gigawatts, then we increase this number. The picture that you showed us before, where you had 5 wind turbines at there. Now, if we increase the output of a wind turbine, then we reduce the number of wind turbines that are required in order to meet the goal that we have. So technology is on our side. Just to sum up things, I think that the benefits are obvious. All of you have talked about them. It is necessary to have the complete regulatory framework in order to actually establish a realistic time frame, because we have good intentions, but it's the road to implementing them is a long one. And of course, there are also the technical challenges that have been answered to a great extent, but we do have questions because even if we talk about the energy system, the energy sufficiency, wind farms, we need to answer those questions. I'd like to thank you. You can stay with us. We will have, next is the panel number 8 about the new financing schemes for the development of RES.